Welcome to the Business Spotlight, where today the spotlight is shining on Rick Marengo from Zxlr8. Welcome, Rick, to the Business Spotlight.
Hi.
Hi. To start us off with, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and your business, please?
Sure. Well, we're a software house, and we write software to help people's businesses become more efficient. And we have ended up specializing in three areas. Thank goodness, because our biggest area was staffing in high footfall places. And of course, that all disappeared during the pandemic. So the three areas are staffing. So probably if you go to a concert or a football match, most of the people in yellow jackets will be vetted via our system, booked via our system, paid via our system. They will check in using their phone via our system with GPS or Zxlr8 checkpoints, which are things that stick on the wall so you can see guards have done their tours and stuff. Likewise, experiential, field marketing, all these people that go around the shops and they're doing merchandising, making sure that your product is in a better position than somebody else's soup or whatever. And various other hospitality and so on. So basically staffing agencies that make up where you wouldn't want your own staff, you'd have somebody do it for a gig. So that's a huge market at the moment. The other two markets are government, where we've been for about 20 years, and we do something in information governance, which I won't even bother you with. It's
Thank you.
A compliance thing.
Okay, I was going to say it's not one of those where you go, once we tell you, we have to.
Finance is the third one, and that's really for brokers and lenders who are doing commercial deals and mortgage deals and stuff, and they have a huge amount of paperwork to go through to get your requirement for a whatever £300,000 loan to buy 2 more buses to a lender and back, and there's lots of information to gather, so we help out with that. So there's 3 areas where we help people a lot with their workflow. Okay.
And how long have you been in business for?
93, frighteningly. We started the business in 93, and it was a kind of a business on the side. My colleagues at the time and I wrote the software, and we paid for the time that we took to write the software and develop it by running a business distributing products from the US with an aspiration to be a net exporter ourselves. We sold that business in 98. In 2 tranches. You know the way it works. You sell the first part, and then second, the money you get for the second part is much more based on the increase in sales that you do. So the buyer gets a great increase in sales and a vibrant company, and the seller has an incentive to sell like crazy and make sure the buyer's left with something good in their hands. So that all went very well for all parties concerned. We reinvested the money in all sorts of technology just before the .com bubble, and that was the last really, really big mean recession. So we then ended up with 3 or 4 offices which we had to get rid of, and ended up in a porter cabin, and we are now in probably, I would say, 2 porter cabins and a little bit of other place, but they're, as you can see, I don't know if you can see behind me, my notice board's a bit messy, but they're a bit better than porter cabins.
Okay.
Basically we sell to people with more sense than money. We have 0 overheads in the business, except obviously very expensive information technology and security and staff, and that's where the investment and the quality goes. Not in an office with flags and Ferraris outside, which is always a bit of an alarm for me, bit of a red flag for me. So looking back, we've had to work from the initial venture capital phase where the shareholders put the money in. From that initial phase, we've had to make a profit every year. Well, I mean, from reserves, we can handle a loss of a few grand, but not really. It's rather better to make a profit every quarter so that we can pay the wages. And that's been a very, very good financial discipline. We have never taken a loan, even during the pandemic. And we have always kept a very, very tight ship financially. And that I think has its benefits. Nice.
So what motivated you to get started into business? Was it something that you've always wanted to do, or you just fell into it? How did it come about?
Well, in software where I was working, and many other people in other industries will empathize with this, I'm sure, you have to be careful you're not just a shop window for American or Chinese or whatever products. So we completely manufacture what we sell in the UK with people in the UK. And we haven't become a net exporter, but we export a lot. You know, a lot of money gets paid into us from Dubai and Austria and France, and so you know, in the States and stuff. And so we've got customers all over the world, and that's bringing dollars into the UK. And but the vast majority of our business is in the UK, and I'd like to obviously grow the outside stuff as well.
Okay, so what? So obviously in your opinion, but what does your business do really well?
What we do really well is we help people with small transaction amounts in high volume to deal with that complexity.
Right.
So if you have 400 or 500 staff out on a Saturday doing demonstrations in Tesco, you cannot prove that a particular member of staff turned up in Tesco Truro. There's just too many of them out there. You're paying them, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 pounds an hour and expenses. Those transactions with hundreds of staff and hundreds of hours to pay, you just need a computer to work it all out for you. You just press a button for the payroll, you press a button to see who turned up late. And by and large, it helps you run a business with 4 people where you would have needed 30 people. So it's very, very efficient. And the same goes for financial transactions, and the same goes for government. You know, there are people in the public service. If they try to do what our system does on a spreadsheet, they would be spending 3 or 4 man days for every hour that they spend using our system. So that's what we do. We take quite complex, small transaction amounts, small things, but there's loads of them and they're quite complex, and we make it easy for the customer.
Make it easy. Okay. Now, you've already alluded, been in business since '93. You've already alluded to a previous recession. I was going to say, aside from the obvious, but what have been some of the key challenges that you've had over these many years that you've been in business?
I think the first one is getting really good people.
Okay.
And like everybody, I don't know, some people are much quicker to fire than I am, but I'm very, very late to fire people. And you know, if you were doing my appraisal now, you'd say, you know, why didn't that guy go 3 months ago? He was clearly useless or whatever. So I think it's all about picking the right people and making sure that if they do go, they go very early, based on very early goals and objectives. And if they're good, that they stay, and you just make sure they stay whatever it takes. So I think that's the first takeaway. I think the second thing is investment in training always pays you back. It pays you back in spades. And then I think the most important thing to remember is you're competing. All markets now, as they say in funky business, have oversupply. It doesn't matter whether there's cars or internet suppliers or software companies like us. Whatever you want to sell, your services, management consultancy, it doesn't matter what you're selling, there's oversupply in the market. People can get 58 quotes if they've got the time to, and they can, you know, basically what I'm saying is all of us have to compete like mad, and we have to throw lots of service in. We would like to sell a product and say, there you go, and they walk away and you make a profit, but that never ever happens. They always want to bring it back, talk about something, how can I use this better? And in all of our businesses, regardless of what we are, that has to happen. And I think that's drifting into the public sector as well, where people are trying to make sure that they're seen as giving a good service and not just...
I was going to say, just delivering a service is not good enough anymore, is it? You need to be a great service practically every time you deliver.
Yeah, and it's amazing how you can slip up once. What's that thing? You know, somebody who is happy with you will tell one person. Somebody who's unhappy with you will tell 17 people. You know, you hear all these kind of quotes and things. And it is amazing also how we're in a brutal environment. We're fairly brutal with our suppliers, but our customers are running agencies with often rude customers that are, you know, will sack them on the spot. So if we don't deliver for a minute, you know, we could have somebody who's a customer for 10 years, but we could make a mistake, and that will be, you know, we've then got maybe 2-3 mistakes left, you know. All will be out. So we've got to be really, really on our game the whole time. If somebody rings in with an enhancement request or some feedback, we have to take it seriously, because it could seem like nothing to us, but it could be really, really serious for them. But these are things that you know, your audience will know about.
So what I've been what have been your learnings, and I kind of mean business learnings, but also for you personally as a business owner, when you now look back on the time that you've had the business, what have been some of your key learnings?
Well, but they do say every day is a school day.
And that is very correct.
I know it sounds silly. I mean, I suppose I keep learning about the market and the ability of competitors to come in and absolutely nick your lunch. Okay. I'm learning a massive amount about the businesses that we help to run and how they run. So I've learned a lot about the public sector, and it's changed my mind because you get some quite inspirational people in the public sector, as well as the stereotypical person who's sitting at home now, you know, on their exercise bike. But there are some fantastic people there, and they do some really great work. Likewise in finance, you've got to really understand the stresses and strains that a finance broker, who is probably a middle-aged person who's worked for a bank for 20 or 30 years, and they've taken their redundancy money, they've started as an AR for another company, or they're running their own company, can understand the stresses and strains that those guys are under. Guys, you know, I'm using the old-fashioned
general.
Yeah, the general sort of guys, folks. So the other thing that I tend to do, that I like to do, is I tend to pick up an awful lot of skills on YouTube. If I don't know how to do something and it's necessary for the business, I do that. And I've invested heavily. My personal journey now is computer security, cyber security, because it's essential for my business. So I've got a bunch of Udemy courses I'm doing. I spend a lot of time filling out cybersecurity questionnaires from government customers who are leading in this area, and going on courses on vulnerability scanning. And I'm doing the CRISP, the CISSP exams and that kind of stuff. And that is an area which you either find very boring, and I'm not detecting a huge amount of excitement, but the consequences of cybersecurity scams and so on are absolutely massive, and somebody has to learn these things and figure them out. And I'm by no means an expert. I've just most of my motivation to do it is because I've been embarrassed by experts who said, do you realize somebody could do this? And that happens to anybody in IT. I would say now once every month, once every 6 months, depending on, and perversely, the more popular your product is, the more you get people ringing you up and say, do you realize this is available on the internet and somebody could do this, that, and the other? And you have to deal with it.
Scary,
so perversely,
isn't it?
Yeah, perversely, the more popular your product is, the more faults will be found in it. And you can see why that is. And it's a bit like if you drive a Jag, you take it in for a service, and they say, "Oh, we've never seen that problem with the Whizzy windows. Here's a car, we'll look after it." And you think to yourself, "Yeah, that's because there's not very many people driving Jags." Whereas you drive a Toyota or a Hyundai or something, you take it in, and they say, "Oh, yeah, that's a known fault. Dink, finished," and you're out again. Or you probably just don't find faults because so many millions of people have reported them before you. So that's where we want to be. We want the volume because of that. So
and in technology, it's an important thing right now in general, but I think as business owners, it's an important one, right? Because there's always changes that are happening in whatever worlds that we work in, and we have to stay on top of what's going on. So at a minimum, we know what questions to ask to some of the experts that are out there to know that your business is safe.
Yeah, I think while we're talking, there's a hotelier somewhere that's fixing 3 things they've just walked past. You know, they've walked past the dining room and there's something out of place, and they've noticed some dirt on the something. So all of us are keeping our businesses neat. We're looking at things that we can improve. And I think when that stops, then you're not really enjoying business anymore. And so that's I think if you enjoy that, I think that's great.
So as a business owner, what still keeps you awake at night?
Oh, for sure. Cash flow, people, getting more customers has got to be the big one. What can we do to make a noise now? If I did that LinkedIn article versus, if I do 1 LinkedIn article a week or 2 LinkedIn articles a week, should I be on that subject or that subject? And the sad thing about LinkedIn basically is I did an experiment with one about a whale and got 5 times as many responses and likes as one that I thought was quite topical and for in the staffing market for getting 5-year address histories on your for your BS 78, 58 vetting. Who knew?
I keep saying this to my clients as well. Is if you put an animal in your post, you'll get more engagement.
Yeah.
So it's good to know. Normally I talk about dogs and cats, but it's good to know that whales have the same effect.
Yeah, I think if I'd put a cat in, I'd have done much better. But there we go.
That's for next week. For when next week. If you were to start your business again now, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
Oh, sell bread for sure.
Okay.
I'd probably do the same thing. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I'd probably do the same thing.
Okay. In exactly the same way, or would there be certain things that you change, that you do differently?
It's difficult to say because you make your decisions at every point with the best information you have at the time. So yes, obviously I might have fished on the other side of the boat, but then I wouldn't have known to do so. So it's not even worth going backwards. Like everybody, I've had some really, really good times and some rubbish times. And I think you just move on. I think anybody that's come through the pandemic, unless you were lucky enough to be in food or PPE or something, I think you should congratulate yourselves and look forward to a better economy in future.
Yeah, I love that. So I love that. It's a great ethos. I live pretty similar to that one. So let's stop looking back. Let's go forward. So for your industry, what do you see happening in the next 5 years?
I see more and more stuff done over the internet like this. Okay. And I see more and more brokers retiring and more reliance as younger ones come up in the succession plans using systems to do their work. Okay. I also see within that general upskilling, there'll be an awful lot of people who are creating their own applications rather than coming to a software house like us. So what we've done about that is we've created, you've probably heard of no code, which is one of the big trends at the moment.
I have.
Internet of Things and no code and AI. These are the things that people are talking about. So we have, for our staffing time and attendance piece, we've got lots and lots of things going on for the last 5 years and the next 5 years planned for proving time and attendance. So if you've got lots and lots of people, you can't have management layers going and checking that a security guard is walking around. You have to have things where somebody clicks on their phone and their fingerprint is on it, so it was them and they were in that position, so they were guarding Mrs. Jones's stable that evening. And likewise, the no code part is a very exciting part for us, because people who want to create applications now want to be able to do it with free tools, and they don't want to do programming code. They want to come up with lists of their assets. They want to come up with lists of their assets. They want to come up with maps of where their assets are. They want to know the assets that should be tested this week for a PAT test or a PUA test. They want to know where things are, and so on and so forth. And there's a certain level where you can't go any further on a spreadsheet, however good you are. And you can't really, whatever you say about spreadsheets and SharePoint and stuff, you can't really share a spreadsheet. There's all sorts of problems with it. So the idea that you can go on, build your database online using a no-code tool is really, and we've just launched ours on Azure with Microsoft, and we've just started getting our first Microsoft co-op marketing credits and usage credits and things like that. So very exciting times for that. And people will be able to sign on free, get free applications. And then when they say, but I'm looking for my assets are power tools, not fruit or whatever. So they can then change it. They can change the labels. They can change it, put their logo on the thing, create a client portal so their clients can see which assets they've sent, whatever it is. So that's a really, really exciting area where people can create a business, knock up an application to run the business, geographically independent. So you could literally knock up an application where you know what your products are, much in the way as you can create an e-shop, and then suddenly people all over the world can be stakeholders in your business. So there's a heck of a lot of business applications that are not catered for, and no code is going to be the way forward doing that. You don't have to have programmers. So what our development has done is it's taken the code knowledge that we have from building applications for decades, and it's put it in the hands of numerate business managers so that she can just say, well, I'm doing a staffing system, or I run a business. I was speaking to one on the weekend. She's just created a business and got her second round of venture capital, and she does 360-degree vision for B2B marketing. So you
Wow.
can get a brand experience with these goggles on. I tried it out on Saturday in London in her roadshow. Absolutely phenomenal. And she needs things like, where is all the equipment? You know, some of it's £100 for the goggles, but some of it's
Yeah.
£600 or £800 or thousands of pounds for the cameras that do the.
Yeah.
And this stuff gets stolen, it gets lost. You know, you do your roadshow and you find 5 things are left in Paris or you know, there's just all kinds of checklists and things. So she needs to put an application together for that. Just a great example where somebody has a startup, they need an application, they need it now. It's simple. It has 5 screens, and this person needs this view. That person can see this, but not that. And so then, you know, 2 weeks later, they've got another round of venture capital, or they've got 10 times more staff, or they've got 6 customers. Then they need the customer lists, and so people need to be able to develop those applications, and that's where our business is going in the future.
Nice.
Having the in the same way as word processors came in, and you could suddenly type your own documents.
Yeah.
And then desktop publishing and spreadsheets came in. We want to take it to the next stage where people can develop their own applications, because all businesses need applications.
So great opportunities coming up because of that. Now, what will potentially be some of the challenges for your business with that?
Competition is already hot. Right. I mean, already seriously hot. There are some just great competitors out there that have been doing that for a while. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that as we enter the market, and let's say for the sake of argument, there's 100 of them, 90 will fall by the wayside, but the ones that are there will be competing, lowering our margins, giving lots of stuff on the internet. Is a great place for giving stuff away free to get people interested in it. And I think adding loads and loads and loads of service to it. So the challenge will certainly be competition. I think the second one will be that envelope where you get things free is going to open up and open up and open up. So the reason a lot of people will go bust is because they haven't got the revenue streams that we have. They're startups, and their investors will say, well, look, you've given this stuff away for free for 5 months now and no revenues come in, so I'm off, or whatever. So the challenges are huge. The challenges are huge. And already the global competition is enormous. You know, there are companies coming out of India and China that are producing really good software. The kids are coming out of school with better math scores than European kids. Basically, there's just no getting away from it. You know, STEM subjects is what drives this whole thing. And over the internet, it's not that easy to have people selling to people. It's and so another challenge is to make all of our internet touch points with people seem like it's the girl who used to come in and update their crisp racks with the new flavors of crisps in their shop, and they used to say hello. You got to kind of, so these are big interpersonal challenges and linguistic challenges as well.
Actually, I was going to say, what kind of changes does that mean you already have to make now, knowing that that's coming?
Well, the things that we've been ready for years and not really been able to use is we've got quite good linguistic skills here. European languages, not really Chinese languages, and Asian languages. But we know that one of the reasons that the American competitors do so well is they have this massive what they call national market, or domestic market. So if you just look at any product, you get in an airplane and you fly along the Rockies, you can go from San Francisco to Orlando, same damn fence. So somebody selling a fence from fencing is going to sell 50 yards on a good day, maybe 500 yards to a farmer. But somebody in America say it's in tens or hundreds of miles, the stuff.
Yes.
It's the same with software. So one of our big challenges is to sell it all over the world, because the UK is not big enough for a heck of a lot of markets.
Yeah.
And I think the other challenge is product marketing. Have you heard of product marketing roulette? So you think, I think this will be a really good success, and you try it and you sell one and you say whoopie-doo. You then find all the other 58 zillion people who are in the same business. And of course you have a long tail to the curve. So you'll find in your business, in our business, everybody's business, you'll find 3 of them turn over 10 million. And they've got their own, in our case, IT department, in your case, enough management consultant trained MBAs to get to the moon with. And then the others are basically one-man bands, two-man bands, and they're never going to buy software in a million years, or they want it for £5 a month or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's a different kind of software. And they might buy internet, email, and a laptop, but then and a phone, but they're not. That's it for technology. So the challenge is to find those middle points, and in many businesses, for all of us, there's a huge amount of oversupply in those middle point areas. So in software, it doesn't matter if you're selling insurance, lots and lots of places will find that they're selling to a market with 40,000 people. You put the development effort into building it, and then you find there's only actually a market of 5 people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a classic one we've just done for local government. We wanted to sell it to elections managers, and we thought that's good because they only kind of pop out once every couple of years. And then
if we're lucky,
you can keep your name in their mind with mail shots and things. We're going to take our staffing stuff to use it there. And we kind of knew it might work, it might not. But for the cost of a mail shot, who cares? The problem is if you then sell to and you say, crikey, this is going to be big, and you invest lots and lots of effort into building a product and documentation and a web page about it, or maybe even a dedicated website, you've then put everything on red. And that's why I call it product marketing roulette.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes we've won, like the staffing system and the government system. And guess what? Sometimes we've really lost big time. Theatre ticketing. We had a fantastic system, couldn't sell it. So, and so there we go. Product marketing roulette.
I love that. I'm going to use that somewhere. Thank you. What or who inspires you?
Oh, so many. I'm a big reader of autobiographies. Lee Iacocca is a cracker. I think the work rate of people like Kroc, and as I get older, because obviously I started as an entrepreneur in my mid-20s, but as I get older, I start to really appreciate people like Kroc and Colonel Saunders, and these guys that start these businesses in their late 50s, early 60s. It's just amazing. A customer sent me a list, and I've put it on my wall here, and it's just amazing. The actual, somewhere around, I've got the list and the graph of when these guys started their business. And there's some of these guys that are running huge businesses now. And I might have got rid of it. It was there for quite a long time. I think I might have got rid of it. Some
inspiration.
But it's just extraordinary how some people create. I think the guy from Coca-Cola or Pepsi, one of those two, started in his 50s or so. So it's just amazing how old people are. And then at the other end, of course, you get people like Dell who start at 22, and there's this kind of workaholic part of their personality. Bill Gates, I don't see Bill Gates and Steve Jobs as, I think there's a certain amount, and I've been quite influenced by Malcolm Gladwell's analysis of them. There's a certain amount of being in the right decade and being born at the right time. And he's looked at an awful lot of tech billionaires. They all are 2 or 3 years older than me. So if they were born in 52, 54, and the sweet point Malcolm Gladwell found was 54, they had, and if they were in California, they had huge advantages over somebody 2 years earlier and 2 years later. So no, I've got, I'm a big fan of, I can't remember his name, but I read 2 analyses of the guy who ran ITT, and I can't remember, it was Greenfield, I can't remember his name now. Extraordinary character though. Richard Branson is an interesting one, because if you read his PR, he's great. If you read The Virgin King, he's just, but the thing about Richard Branson is he once stood way behind me in a queue to get on a Virgin flight out of Cape Town. And he was just chatting to people, and there was no kind of, like American executives or even the crew, whatever, they would just walk straight up the front, and people say, Mr. And let them through. Richard Branson was in the queue, and he came around the aircraft and said hello to people. So you just can't buy that kind of personal charm and ability to get on with people.
I agree. So what's still on your achievement list, like in the next 5 years? What do you still want to achieve? And I don't mean with the business,
well, now everybody's gone, and they'll never watch this. Certainly the succession plan, we've got a fantastic team. We've got a really talented team now, and sometimes you go into work running a business and you think, I actually only like half the people here, and sometimes and it takes a long time to get to the position where we are now, where I genuinely really, really like all of my colleagues. They're very good at what they do. And it's my job to make sure everybody does their object, so the goalie stays in goal and doesn't get a bit bored and go out and play on the wing. People play to their strengths, of which there are considerable strengths, because obviously the buck stops with me if we don't achieve targets. I definitely want to get more export customers. I think everybody in the UK now should be thinking about how they can sell outside. I have a certain low view of people that just flog stuff and move money around in the UK. You know, there's an awful lot of stuff. I don't want to upset any of your small business customers by naming a particular profession, but there's an awful lot of things where you're basically moving money around in the UK, as opposed to helping the UK become more efficient and actually selling outside. Certainly I'd like to see tax benefits for exporters, and I think the succession plan is really important, because I'm going to croak sooner than later, and I'm definitely I did an all-nighter on Monday for a tender for a local authority, and I definitely don't have the batteries that I used to have, the Duracell bunny factor that I used to have when I was younger. So there's a bunch of there's a bunch of things that I see as challenges for the future. But my mindset is definitely one of compete, because people do, all of our competitors seem to fall apart at some point, because we're in such tough markets. We're in markets where you've got a deal comes up every now and then, and you've got to go at it like a lion. If you've ever seen one of those nature documentaries, you basically go at it like a lion, or you're going to be extinct.
So you're definitely not taking your foot off the gas, is what I'm hearing you say there, until a succession plan or is started or written.
Yeah, I think that's in my personality. I don't know if it's very healthy or not. Most of my pals have, not all my pals are retired. There's quite a few of us, but maybe that's selective association. Maybe I like to knock about with people that are doing business and have similar stories of how they closed a deal somewhere or something.
Yeah, but that's how you understand each other, right? I see that with a lot of my younger business clients that I have. Their friends that just have a job don't always get what it's like to have a business, and they tend to drift a little bit after a while. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily that you're seeing that. Let's put it that way. If you had the opportunity to go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to 18-year-old Rick? What advice would you give?
I just wonder if I'd have gone to the States.
Interesting.
I think there was more opportunity there. I had an opportunity to do that while I was working at Hewlett Packard and probably at Oracle, but certainly at Hewlett Packard, quite a few of my pals did, and they got the card and the green card and stuff, and lived there for years. I don't know how that would have worked out. My cousin did that, and of course now he's a little bit older than me, but he's obviously got whatever profits, and he's become very rich over there, but whatever profits he makes, I suspect his various different medical consultants are gonna eat them up, from changing hips to whatever else goes wrong as you get older. So the cost of medicine is certainly something to worry about over there, but the opportunities when I was young were just absolutely huge. So that might be one of them.
Okay. And then actually on the flip side of that, if you now spoke to someone that's thinking of starting a business, what would your 2 top tips be for someone starting out right now?
I'd say just make sure that you've got plan B, plan C. There's a lot of risk involved, but if it's somebody who's quite young, they can just ride with it and go and get a job. If you haven't got a family to look after, if you've got a really good profession and you know what you're doing, then you can sell that service. It's actually a really interesting one, because a lot of time we spend talking about productivity in the UK, and we're told by economists our productivity is low. And there was a really interesting article that I read about 4 or 5 years ago in the Financial Times, where this guy was saying that the reason is there are so many people who have started up their own business, and they are really good at, let's say, horticulture or tree surgeons or engineers, or they're consulting somethings, or they're accountants. And the problem is they then have a whole bunch of stuff that they can't afford to outsource on the margins that they're making. But at the same time, they actually can't afford not to have them. So they end up trying to build their own website, and they try and build their own IT, and they have to deal with huge numbers of forms with the government. And if you want to bid for larger companies and get larger, there's all kinds of stuff. You have to sign off on all kinds of stuff, and there's insurance. So by the time you get an hour to work in, you've spent 7 hours mucking about with compliance and websites and marketing and things. So, yep. So it was quite an interesting, when you figure out the number of self-employed people, although they're maybe doing more hours, it was a very persuasive argument that all of us, you, me, that are running a business, a small business, smaller than 60, 70 people. I mean, just take what's it called, investors in people, or any standard, the what's this other thing, the price that you pay, for example, to be registered with the Information Commissioner. All of these prices for a small business aren't much different to what Marks and Spencer's pays. It's amazing how you can have a company that has tiny scale, and these things weigh heavily on them. And there's a heck of a lot of these small companies in the UK that are back in the UK.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you are released from loads of that compliance, then a certain class of bright person doesn't want to work for you. They will want to go and work for a big place where they are obligated to have all sorts of different employee benefits and so on. So that's the challenge then is to make your little place 10 times more exciting for bright people
than some of the larger,
some of the larger places. So going back to your question, what would I advise a younger person? Probably stay as long as you can in a great, big, safe, well-paid company, and just the fact you hate your boss, let it roll off your shoulders. And I certainly did that for quite a long time. I didn't hate my boss. I've gotten very well, but I spent my first, I suppose, 15 odd years of my career or something like that, working for large companies and learning lots and lots and lots of stuff, which has helped me. I don't think I could have been. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I could not have. My dad was an academic. My mum was a nurse. I couldn't have been an entrepreneur. I just didn't have the conversations around the dinner table, the ethos. I wouldn't have understood how to be an entrepreneur. So I started much later.
Interesting on that one. Actually, that nicely leads me. I've got like 2 finishing questions. Has being in business been harder, easier, or kind of what you thought it was going to be?
The ups have been fantastic. There's nothing like having a few million quid in your personal bank account, figuring out what to do with it, and being able to pay off, just buy a house with cash and things like that. The downs have been truly terrifying. So I would say a little bit of both, really. A little bit of both.
Would you do it again if you had the opportunity? Knowing what you know now,
right for me. Do it again? It's really right for me. When I can't remember which one of the recessions I started. It must have been like 89, one of those oil recessions. And I started. I left one of these American companies where they draw a line through 200 people in California somewhere, and was one of them. And we had the what you were wearing when you were fired party, and 2 or 3 of us went off to be self-employed. And my wife was really petrified because we had our first baby on the way, and she was saying, get a job. And then I started this my previous business, which I sold, and she was saying, I've never seen you happier. And of course, then the money was starting to run in, so that was both together. And so certainly for the first 10 or 15 years, it just went extremely well. And but then as you hire more people, or as you try to do more stuff, if you take a hit and you've got to build off that, and then you take another, there's lots and lots of ups and downs. And I think there's still a huge number of opportunities for people to start businesses and do really, really well.
And there will continue to be. On that note, that's a beautiful end. Thank you so much, Rick, for your time and for sharing your story with us. Some really great nuggets in there. The links to connect with Rick are in the bottom of our video here. Thank you very much for watching the Business Spotlight, and until next time.
Well, if I have one other thing that I can say, I would say do go to our edportals.io site, And if you want to create an application for yourself, if there's a business application that's going to cost you £500 a month or £5,000 to put in, do go to Ed Portals, spelt as it sounds, .io, and let us help you build your own apps.
Perfect.
Online internet apps with client portals and so on. And
I'll make sure that the link is nicely at the bottom of the message.
Free to start. It's free for a long time, actually. You can go quite a long way without having to pay anything. So, Bill,
thank you.
Thank you very much for that.